Hello, I'm Kim Sauer at Apex 2018 in San Diego. I've got a great panel today talking about what's new in electronics, and I've got Michael Ford from Aegis with me and Bill from Creative Electronic. Welcome to the panel. Now, what's new in electronics? Let's discuss those key trends that you're observing here at the show and beyond the show walls in the industry.
What's really new is kind of like what's really old. We've had a lot of problems in electronics for many years. Not being able to control quality, productivity, flexibility. And we've been talking about how to solve those problems, with technologies going around the shop floor, traceability, anti-counterfeit, kind of things like that. And it's been really frustrating for people. What's new in electronics right now is that we've found a way to solve those problems, or at least to get to the first base in solving those problems. And that is the collection of data from machines, the exchange of data from between machines, the connected factory exchange. We've been talking about it in theory, but here at the show we've seen it in reality. Many different companies are coming up saying now, how do I install it? Where do I buy it? And we have to tell them, hey guys, it's free. Just go to the IPC, it's free. And that's kind of sparked a lot of people's imagination. Mm-hmm. The kind of problems that people have been trying to tackle in manufacturing for a long time, talk about this digital manufacturing process. Suddenly people are, the lights are on and they're thinking, we can start to do something now.
Yeah, and as you know, data out of context is noise, right? So the challenge now, the next step in this evolutionary process that we've been going through the past few years, now that we have all those data, our job is now to contextualize it, right? So that data can become information. So we get out of the noise level that we are right now and get into information so that we can provide the manufacturing floor with the right information at the right time so that they can provide the traceability that we need to provide the anti-counterfeiting process that we need. So I think that's the next challenge, and that's where I think we're going to start seeing more and more of the machine learning and artificial intelligence come in, right? Because before we had the disconnect, we have pockets of information and pockets of automation inside the factory, right? You had your pick and place, fairly well automated. We had some storage with some automation, some intelligence. We had inspection equipment, AOI, SPI, X-ray in this other pocket. So what CFX enabled is the connectivity, right? But what do you do after that? And I think that's what's really exciting is the ability to start connecting these machines, learning from them, and then, if you will, placing a layer, right, of artificial intelligence that's going to provide this next level of efficiency and next level of quality. What do you think, Michael? When is that going to happen? Let me ask you that.
Well, there are like 40 different machine vendors now signing up for this CFX, and they're all wondering the same thing. And the reality is that people are going to come up with solutions that provide an opportunity to improve that technology, take it to the next level and automate it. But just as an example which is not machine related, so people can understand, imagine the factory of today, where you have an operator who goes to work, sits in front of a station, and does the same thing all day. Basically, they've been making one product, and they've been doing the same thing. It's the worst job in the world for people who want variation. Now, fast forward to the digital factory. We now can see the changing demands from the customers. We can have a very flexible operation, and things are changing very rapidly. Now, augmented reality, digital information. We have instructions coming from a centralized AI, maybe in the future, or maybe just a logic-driven system at first, that is giving information to those operators. Now, that information enables them to do a variety of jobs, because it may say, okay, do your kind of assembly process for the next hour, but then go and do a quality process, a materials logistics operation, machine maintenance. They don't need all of the kind of technology in their heads, because it's coming to them on the glasses. Instructions on how to do these things, guidance on what to do. So instead of having operators that are specifically targeted to just one operation, now you've got a very flexible workforce, a workforce that's engaged in what they're doing because they're contributing to many areas. And we'll see the increase of people in manufacturing as they become part of the digital factory. So this process will happen on machines, but it also happens on people.
But it's counterintuitive, right? Because every time we talk about automation, we talk about removing people from the factory, and eventually lights off, right? Lights out factory is something that. So you don't think that's going to happen?
No,
that
I
you're going to have, the future, the CM of the future is this huge facility in the middle of nowhere with drones falling in and out, and AI controlling everything, where with 100% efficiency. I know it's a topic, but we might get to 98%.
Well, funnily enough, at my early stages of my career, I saw a lights out factory. It was IBM making PS2s. And it was quite impressive, other than the fact the lights kept going on. Sure. Now, they were making a single product for a long time, and so in theory, everything should have been all right.
Perfect, yeah.
Now, that concept stuck with me. This is a great thing to do. And we've been striving to achieve it kind of in, let's say, normal electronics ever since. But the market, unfortunately, has changed. If we were still doing mass production, lights out could be done because you can optimize and automate each of the different stages, even material replenishments and things like that. But when we get to almost build on demand, in a way that's got to be as high performance as high volume manufacturing, we need that edge where people will be making decisions augmented by information coming to them to understand whether we can move this product or allocate this here and move things around. Ultimately, Terminator may come along and start to do the AI to control the factory. Maybe so. But I think it's an awful lot more difficult now that the need for flexibility is so high.
But we're both algorithms guys, right? Algorithms are better than people, aren't they? To make those decisions, right? If you're talking about a high mix low volume environment, which is it's reality, right? And then extra need of flexibility. If you're talking about optimizing inventory control, for example, and optimizing the pick and place and all the other stages of the factory, don't you think at some point with all this connectivity, we'll be able to design an algorithm that can put it all together and make it better than a human who might forgot to order capacitors in a line, and now we have an 18 lead time.
But I think that's what you're really saying. The people are still there. They're getting the algorithm gives them the information they need to make the production more efficient.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
was my understanding of what you were saying. Can I just touch on one thing you mentioned as well, the security issue in that? Because when we're talking about the smart factory and all that data that's generated, there is still some, I don't know if I call it skepticism, maybe it's conservatism in the industry of this is my data, I don't want it to leak.
Yeah.
It's going to be sitting up in the cloud, it's somewhere I can't really control. Is that really an issue? Or is it just because we're humans and we want to protect stuff and we want to protect information?
I think for some customers it will always be an issue.
Yeah.
For a set of customers.
Depending on the industry they're
Depends on the industry.
supplying.
If it's
their
military,
customer.
aerospace, there is some very strict restrictions, and the barrier of entry to the cloud and those customers is going to be there for quite a while. Some other other customers are much more, they are the early adopters, and we've seen the cloud adoption quite widely.
There is another angle on that. The first thing, to have things in a secure format and to be able to ring fence or firewall stuff, fine, there are different requirements for that. But the human element comes in again. I was in a factory where there was data being collected automatically and all of the things, charts and things were updating, and they were so confident that they let the customer see the data because the customer wanted to have that level of confidence that they wanted to see it. But they got a telephone call in the middle of the night. The customer, he was in bed
With the laptop.
with the laptop and maybe his wife as well. And he was looking and he saw an alert come from the manufacturing floor, and he called into the company and said, look, this machine has stopped. Why has it stopped? And the guys there, and they looked around because they were having some coffee or something, and they looked around, the machine had stopped. But it was a normal stop. Machines do stop for replenishing materials or changing over and stuff like that. So it embarrassed the company. So there is a kind of a translation of what is raw data and what is contextualized data, which you might want to make available outside. So you end up with two distinct domains in this digital factory. The domain which is making the real-time control, we have algorithms, we have AI in future managing this area. But when you look at it from afar, you have to take a contextual look. And so managing the data through these layers is actually quite important. Otherwise people are going to say no.
Yeah, go back to the noise, right? Our data out of context becomes noise, and noise leads to embarrassment sometimes.
And again, that's another point. What's quite refreshing is we've been talking about the people element in this quite strongly, because that's the other thing a lot of people think, that the people all of a sudden don't have anything. Is it opening up, is all this generation of data and the analysis required, is that opening up new jobs, new opportunities for solutions, for products in the industry? So when we walk over the Apex show floor in 2 years, 5 years time, we'll see a complete set of different companies and people with different skills that you're going to have to employ in your facilities to be able to cope with all this data and change the services you provide to your customers?
I think so. Actually, I'm a big believer in the in this machine learning, and I think the connectivity that you have today is just the tip of the iceberg, right? To shift to the digital factory, where this extra level of efficiency. I mean, listen to what you were saying about augmented reality, right? These companies are not here yet, but they're coming, right? The companies with the Google Glasses or whatever next it is, companies that are going to be, because basically what we're describing here in the digital factory is a self-training program, right? Where you don't have to spend hours and thousands of dollars training people, right? It's self-training, right? So that gives you the flexibility of the workforce, and also gives you the ability to be much more nimble, right, in your manpower. So all that, I mean, all those companies, all those technologies already exist out there. They're just not here yet,
them together, right.
because we don't have the data available for them to be relevant. Now we're starting to have, right? So that's next wave, I think, of technology that we're going to see here. So more and more going towards the software and then efficiencies and algorithms.
I wish everybody was like you in this industry, because you know it is going to make us. But it's like understanding that there is another layer to get to. It's not just continuous improvement based on what we've done, but using digital information to get to the next level, trusting it, using it, and being able to create this revolution, if you like. And it starts off with algorithms, but algorithms, no matter how good they are, unless you trust them, and trusting them, you need to see them, you need to experience it, get some track record, and then we move to the next and the next and the next. Then when AI comes in, we have an algorithm that changes its own parameters, so it starts to learn effectively, and then you have to be able to let go. But before you let go, you need to be sure that the algorithms that you've got are already understood by your AI. Exactly. So that it starts and can only get better.
Exactly. That's one of the and I think one of the barriers that we're going to have to the adoption of AI is the concept of the black box, right? And how much visibility are we going to have into the black box? And I think one of the barriers when people think A to Z, right? They think of where we are today and a future where we have this impenetrable, opaque black box, and we don't know what's happening inside, right? But you're describing this evolutionary step, right? Where we're gonna have time to get used to, get comfortable with these technologies, and so when the black box comes, and I'm a believer that it will come, we're gonna have a lot of visibility and we'll have a lot of understanding of how it actually works.
And I think we need to get cleverer with the kind of data that we exchange. I mean, the CFX is exchanging messages and events which would come from the black box, but within, say, a black box that you have, there will be intelligence to process that data in a very unique way. And the result of that is what then would be shared, so that you can see its performance and understand what it's trying to do. Then you get rid of the lower levels of data. You trust your solutions and algorithms. You see the higher level data, and then that becomes part of the decision-making process by a human or whatever. So we've got all this to do now. It's incredible, there's so much there is to do.
Yeah, and it's also, when you talk about the lower level of data, it's also, there's a whole different conversation we can have here, maybe our next panel, which is intellectual property, right? And who owns it, where it resides, right? Because as equipment manufacturers, as software developers, we kind of want to make some money as well. It's good.
Nice.
It would be nice, right? So, and we need intellectual property to do that. Now we talk about sharing and AI, machine learning, and well, we want to be able to keep that lower level of data inside these machines, right? Crunching those algorithms, because that's going to be our intellectual property in this new digital factory. So sharing, but relevant information, data that can be contextualized into powerful information.
Yeah, and controlled sharing.
Control sharing.
Yeah. Just want to wrap this up with the last quick touch point of something that I'm seeing here and hearing a lot is the market as such is very successful at the moment. We're getting a lot of positive feedback there, but one of the gaps in the market because of this, as a result of this, is that there's a gap in the market, and that in terms of labor. And finding people for these jobs, equally is how to attract new talent into this industry, which is often seen by what's often termed as the millennials. It's not the most sexy industry to come into. Are all these trends that we've just been talking about, the AI, the VR, all of these new things, is that our opportunity to make this industry sexy?
I think our industry is incredibly sexy right now. I don't know about you, Mike, but I think it is.
We're in it because we think it is. Yes.
Right.
Well, but I think from the
minority.
minority. But from the outside, like when we went to school, right? The universe of possibilities is much smaller, right? The solution universe is much smaller. Nowadays, with Alexa and all these other devices that we have, I think access to technology has much improved. And the millennials, like you talk, they are curious, right? And I don't know about you, Michael, but we get a lot of high school to college kids really interested. Oh, X-ray, what does it do? How can we make it smarter? How can we make it more connected? So the frame of mind, right, is shifting from a purely hardware, if you will, perspective to a world that's connected, that's things are efficient, and things just happen like magic, right? And a lot of kids, really smart kids out there, they want to know what's inside the black box, right? And they want to design it.
And that's what I mean. Have we opened that door by going into the digital sphere?
I think the door has always been there. Imagine, for example, you give a kid an iPad or tablet. There will be some people who say, this is an amazing tool, I can use this to create things. And there will be the other half that say, this is an amazing tool, I want to see how it works and see if I can do something clever with it. So you always have these two directions. You have the technical and you have the creative. Sometimes you have both, and they kind of end up jumping around. But with the digitalization that we're seeing, it really does open up this to be more than just the image of machines with oil and grease and kind of spanners and things. That kind of day is going. It'll still be there. There are still physical things, but the whole way of controlling and operating and managing these things is really interesting. And I think a lot of people will be excited by that, to see how all of these nice products are made, and to know what goes into them and can change things.
Well, and they have the knowledge how to use it because they grew up with the connected world and digital solutions, etc.
The barrier of entry now is really low.
It's a whole new paradigm for them as well. So we've got to make sure that they understand what's going on here and see the opportunities.
And we have to learn from their knowledge as to how
we will end up learning from them. Yes. Well, they'll take it to a level that we can't even think about right now. So
absolutely. Really interesting talking to you guys and getting your views on it. Thank you for taking the time out today.
Thank you.
Thank you.